James was feeling particularly grumpy one day. "It's not fair in the slightest," he complained to Thomas. "Why is it, I wonder, that engines like Edward and Emily get to see all those splendid views and landmarks and for everyone to see their smart paintwork, whereas a splendid red engine like my good self ends up stuck in a goods yard for weeks on end, shunting dirty trucks?" "Well, to be fair, we all need to do shunting work every so often," replied Thomas reasonably. "I mean, how can you expect it to get long runs day in, day out?" snorted James. "You're just a tank engine after all. Oh, but you know about long runs." So saying, James puffed crossly away, having completely forgotten that Thomas had a branch line. Next morning, James was being repainted at the works. He had been booked to take the express, and the Fat Controller had told him that, as part of the deal, he could have a new coat of paint as well. James felt delighted, happy, and very pleased, all in the same emotion. "I suppose I'll even get the long run I've been craving for so long," he added. As soon as the workman had finished, he headed off to fetch the coaches. And as soon as he arrived, having been coupled up by his driver, they set off. Thomas was shunting trucks in the yard that day. "Well, I suppose James can't complain now," he told himself. But Gordon did when he arrived. "Why am I taking trucks instead of the express?" "Fat Controller's orders, I'm afraid," Thomas admitted. "Disgraceful," fumed Gordon. James, on the other hand, was enjoying himself enormously. "Long runs are grand," he puffed to himself. That evening he was feeling particularly delighted with himself, and had become rather conceited. "The Fat Controller says I'm a bit of a red wonder of the world," he boasted. "And no wonder, since I got the express running to time today." "Pah!" scoffed Gordon. "Whatever," added Emily. Percy was crestfallen by this statement. "So, does that mean the Fat Controller doesn't think very much of me?" he asked Thomas, doubtful. "Of course not," replied Thomas. "To tell the truth, James is only getting long runs because he complains so much about it. I expect the Fat Controller gave him the express to shut him up. Although, knowing James," he added, lowering his voice, "he was bound to let it get to his smoke box sooner or later." "But best of all," added James, ignoring Thomas's last remark, "everyone thinks my paintwork's more splendid than any other engine on the island. Think of that!" And before Thomas could say anything else, James had dozed off to sleep. "I hope he gets what's coming to him," sighed Thomas, raising his eyebrows. The following morning, the firelighters went round the sheds getting the engines ready for the day's work, and as they did so, the Fat Controller arrived with a bit of a briefing. "James, I'd like you to help Percy down at coaling plant," he explained. "We've got a consignment of coal on order that must be delivered to harbour before the ship sails this afternoon. So don't be late if you can help it." "Yes, sir," agreed James. Indeed, he was so eager to please that he set off almost at once, but he didn't realise as he did so that one of the firelighters had accidentally started him, quite by mistake. "Oh no!" exclaimed a voice from within the shed as the offending firelighter came out. He was just about to inform the Fat Controller of the situation when he saw the car driving away. "Ah, blast! Better inform the foreman, I suppose, hadn't I?" the firelighter told himself. James, of course, didn't know what was going on, and set off happily through the Sudrian countryside, passing alongside a canal. "Ah, blimey, my reflection looks magnificent," he said to himself, and trundled happily on, still oblivious. At the coaling plant, Percy was working his hardest, but his train was gradually getting longer by the second, and there was more to come. "Oh, where on earth is James?" the yard foreman wondered. But but no one really knew. Meanwhile, back at Tidmouth, James's crew were to be found in one of the signal boxes, where the signalman was giving them a briefing of the situation. It turns out that one of our firelighters accidentally started James by mistake, so he's turned into a bit of a runaway. I've informed the inspector, and he says he's going to call back. At which point, the telephone sounded, and the signalman promptly answered it. Hello? Yes, he's here. Right, I'll tell him. The inspector's coming at once, and he's bringing Edward with him. Driver, he wants you to have a shunter's pole and a coil of wire rope ready. What for? And what should I do in any case? Added the fireman. Search me, the signalman answered. Didn't tell me. But you better get the equipment ready, whatever happens. Meanwhile, Percy was starting to get tired. The trucks were becoming more troublesome and heavier by the second. Worse still, Percy was getting incredibly puffed out, and soon found that he couldn't shunt any more on his own. This way the coal will be late for the mainland, moaned the yard foreman in disgust. Back in the yards, James's crew were already ready for action when Edward arrived.